I thought I was just going to enjoy a relaxing day at the city's most exclusive spa. I never expected to be humiliated, banned, and escorted out by security in front of dozens of wealthy women. But what these 5 elite ladies didn't know was that my humble husband held the power to buy their precious sanctuary and change their lives forever. Stay with me because what happens next will completely blow your mind. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. 4 years ago, I married David, the most incredible man I've ever met. He's thoughtful, soft-spoken, and has this calming presence that makes you feel like everything will be okay. We met at the public library, where I was researching lesson plans for my kindergarten class, and he was quietly reading financial journals in the corner. David told me he worked in finance, something about consulting and investment advisory services. I didn't really grasp all the technical details, but I knew he occasionally traveled for work and spent most days working from our cozy home office. We lived comfortably in a modest 2-story house with a small garden, nothing extravagant, and I was completely content with our peaceful life together. What I had no idea about then was that David was keeping an enormous secret from me. He always said he wanted us to live authentically, away from the complications and superficiality of his professional world. I trusted him with my whole heart, so I never felt the need to pry into the specifics of his work. David was my partner, my best friend, and that was all that mattered to me. Our relationship was built on genuine love, shared dreams, and simple pleasures like Sunday morning pancakes and evening walks along the beach. One Wednesday morning, David walked into our sunny kitchen while I was preparing my famous blueberry muffins for the school bake sale. He looked unusually tense, which was completely out of character for his normally serene demeanor. "Sweetheart," he said, settling into his favorite chair at our antique oak table, "I have something important to ask you." I turned from the oven, mixing bowls still in my hands, curious about what could be making him seem so nervous. "What's on your mind, honey?" "Some colleagues of mine, well, their wives have extended an invitation for you to join them at a spa day this Saturday. They specifically requested to meet you at the Serenity Springs Wellness Resort downtown." My heart immediately started racing with excitement. I'd never had any interaction with anyone from David's professional circle before. "Really? They actually want to spend time with me?" I asked, unable to hide my enthusiasm. "Yes, they do. I think it would be wonderful for you to connect with other women in the area, maybe develop some meaningful friendships." The thought filled me with pure joy. Living in our quiet neighborhood, I didn't have many close female friends nearby. The prospect of meeting sophisticated women, perhaps forming genuine bonds, made me feel like I was about to embark on an amazing adventure. "What are their names?" I inquired, already mentally planning what I might wear and how I should prepare for this special occasion. "Their names are Victoria, Anastasia, Penelope, Cordelia, and Genevieve," David replied carefully. "They're all accomplished women, and I'm confident you'll find common ground with them." I spent the remainder of the week in a state of happy anticipation about this spa day. I must have reorganized my closet 15 times, searching for something appropriate to wear. My wardrobe consisted mainly of practical teaching clothes and casual weekend outfits. But I had a lovely navy blue sundress that my mother had given me for my birthday, saying it brought out my eyes beautifully. I decided to pair it with my late grandmother's delicate silver bracelet and my most comfortable white sandals. David seemed increasingly worried as Saturday approached, which puzzled me because I thought he'd be happy about my excitement. "Are you absolutely certain you want to go through with this?" he asked Friday evening while we were having dinner on our back porch. "Of course, I'm sure. Why would you even question that?" I laughed, genuinely confused by his concern. "I'm thrilled to finally meet some of the wives from your work world. This could be the beginning of some really beautiful friendships." He smiled warmly, but I noticed something flickering in his eyes that seemed almost like worry or apprehension. "Just remember, Emma, you're more valuable and worthy than anyone you'll ever meet. Don't allow anyone to make you question your worth or feel less than amazing." I found that comment rather odd, but I gave him a reassuring kiss goodnight and drifted off to sleep, dreaming about spa treatments and girl talk with my soon-to-be new friends. Saturday morning arrived, and I was so nervous with anticipation that I could barely manage to eat my usual breakfast of toast and orange juice. The Serenity Springs Wellness Resort was apparently one of those ultra-exclusive establishments where you needed to book appointments months ahead of time and pay premium prices for every service. I took an Uber downtown, smoothing my dress anxiously as we approached the resort. The building was absolutely breathtaking, featuring floor-to-ceiling windows, pristine white marble, and an entrance guarded by impeccably dressed staff members who looked like they belonged in a luxury magazine. I felt slightly intimidated, but I reminded myself that these women had personally invited me to join them. They genuinely wanted to get to know me and welcome me into their social circle. Inside, the resort was even more impressive than I had imagined. Soft classical music floated through the air, crystal water features created a peaceful ambiance, and every surface gleamed with expensive finishes and designer touches. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The receptionist, an elegant woman with perfectly styled hair and flawless makeup, looked me up and down with what seemed like subtle judgment before asking who I was there to meet. "I'm here to join Victoria, Anastasia, Penelope, Cordelia, and Genevieve for their spa day," I said, trying to project confidence despite feeling increasingly out of place. Her eyebrows rose noticeably. "Ah, yes, Mrs. Wellington's exclusive group. Right this way, please." She led me through the resort, and I couldn't shake the feeling that other guests were staring at me as we walked past. I tried to ignore the nagging sensation that I didn't belong in this luxurious environment and focused on the excitement of meeting these accomplished women. Then I saw them, and my breath caught in my throat. 5 women were lounging in plush robes in the VIP relaxation area, and they were absolutely stunning in that effortless way that only comes with wealth and privilege. Victoria wore a cream-colored silk robe that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Anastasia was draped in pristine, white terry cloth that looked like it belonged in a 5-star hotel. Penelope had chosen a soft pink robe that complemented her perfectly manicured nails. Cordelia was wrapped in a luxurious gray robe that seemed to be made of the finest materials money could buy, and Genevieve wore a champagne-colored robe that shimmered subtly in the soft lighting. They all looked up as I approached their exclusive seating area, and I saw something in their collective gaze that made my stomach immediately drop with dread. It wasn't the warmth or welcome I had been hoping for. Instead, it was cold assessment and barely concealed disapproval. "You must be Emma," Victoria said, rising gracefully from her position. She was tall and statuesque, with perfectly highlighted blonde hair and lips that seemed frozen in a polite but distant smile. "I'm Victoria Wellington. How lovely to finally meet you." "Thank you so much for including me today," I replied, extending my hand for a friendly handshake. "I've been looking forward to this all week." The other women introduced themselves with practiced politeness, but there was something chilly about their demeanor, like they were going through the motions of courtesy without any genuine feeling behind it. I settled into the empty chair they indicated, but I was already feeling increasingly uncomfortable and self-conscious. My navy blue sundress suddenly felt cheap and inappropriate compared to their expensive spa robes and designer accessories. My grandmother's silver bracelet felt like a child's costume jewelry next to their obviously real diamonds and precious metals. "So, Emma," Anastasia said, looking at me with perfectly applied makeup that probably took an hour to achieve, "tell us about your background. What do you do professionally?" "I'm a kindergarten teacher," I replied, trying to sound proud of my chosen career. "I work at Sunshine Elementary in Seaside Harbor. I absolutely love working with children and helping them discover their love of learning." The women exchanged meaningful glances that made me feel like I had just admitted to something embarrassing or shameful. "How charming," Penelope said, her voice carrying an undertone that definitely wasn't admiration. "And where exactly did you and David meet? We're all curious about your love story." "We met at the public library," I said, starting to feel defensive about what should have been a romantic memory. "It was actually really sweet. He was reading financial journals and I was working on lesson plans. We started talking about books, and we just connected immediately." "A public library?" Cordelia repeated, as if I had said we met in a prison or a garbage dump. "How wonderfully democratic of you both." Victoria leaned forward with what appeared to be genuine interest, but her tone suggested otherwise. "And your dress today, dear Emma. Where did you find such a unique piece?" I felt heat rising in my cheeks as embarrassment washed over me. "My mother bought it for me at a department store back home. It's nothing special, but I thought it was pretty and appropriate for today." "Oh, it's perfectly adequate," Victoria said, but her tone clearly indicated that adequate was far from impressive. I suppose not everyone has access to real fashion or understands the importance of dressing appropriately for different social situations. The conversation continued in this vein for what felt like hours, but it felt more like an interrogation designed to highlight my shortcomings than a friendly getting-to-know-you chat. They asked probing questions about my education, my family's background, my social connections, and with each response I gave, I could see them mentally placing me in a category marked, "not good enough." "You know," Anastasia said, delicately sipping what appeared to be expensive champagne, "we were all quite surprised when David mentioned he had gotten married. We had assumed he was still single and available." "Why would you think that?" I asked, genuinely puzzled by this assumption. "Well," Penelope said with a slight smirk, "in our social circles, people typically marry within their established networks. Someone who understands the lifestyle, the expectations, the social dynamics." I felt like someone had just slapped me across the face. "I'm sorry, but I don't understand what you're trying to imply." "Oh, sweetie," Cordelia said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy that was more insulting than outright hostility. "You seem like a perfectly nice person, but you're obviously not from our world. The way you present yourself, the way you speak about your life, it's clear you don't understand the sophisticated environment that David operates in professionally." My hands started trembling as the full impact of their words began to sink in. I looked around the group, desperately hoping to see at least one sympathetic face, but they were all regarding me with the same cold judgment and barely concealed contempt. "I think you're being incredibly rude and hurtful," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I came here today hoping to make friends, not to be attacked and insulted." Victoria laughed, but it was a harsh sound devoid of any genuine amusement. "Attacked? Oh, honey, we're simply being honest with you. Look around this room. Look at us, and then look at yourself. Do you honestly believe you belong in this environment?" "David loves me," I said, my voice cracking with emotion. "That's the only thing that should matter to any of you." "Love," Genevieve said, rolling her eyes dramatically. "How incredibly naive. In our world, marriage is about strategic partnerships, social compatibility, building the right professional and personal networks. You're actually holding him back from reaching his full potential. Every time he has to introduce you in professional settings," Anastasia added cruelly, "he's probably cringing inside, wondering what his colleagues and clients are thinking about his choice in a wife." I felt tears beginning to burn behind my eyes, threatening to spill over and complete my humiliation. "That's not true. David would never feel that way about me." "Wake up to reality," Victoria said, her voice cutting and sharp. "You're a small-town kindergarten teacher who doesn't understand how to dress appropriately, how to speak in sophisticated company, or how to conduct yourself in elite social situations. You're an embarrassment to him, and, frankly, to all of us by association." Other spa guests were beginning to notice our conversation, and I could feel their curious and pitying stares boring into me. I wanted nothing more than to disappear completely and pretend this nightmare had never happened. "I think it would be best for everyone involved if you left immediately," Penelope said, not even bothering to look at me directly. "This arrangement clearly isn't working out for any of us." "Yes," Cordelia agreed, with the dismissive wave of her perfectly manicured hand. "Perhaps it would be wise if you didn't attempt to insert yourself into our social circle again. You're simply not suited for this level of society. And please," Genevieve added with mock concern, "don't mention this unfortunate incident to David. It would only create awkwardness for everyone involved, and he has enough professional challenges without having to deal with social embarrassment at home." I stood up on unsteady legs, my vision blurred with unshed tears and overwhelming humiliation. "I'm sorry, I'm not sophisticated enough for your standards," I whispered, my voice breaking completely. "We're sorry too," Victoria said coldly, already turning her attention back to her champagne as if I had already ceased to exist. "But it's better that you understand your limitations now, rather than continuing to live in denial." I walked out of that spa feeling smaller and more worthless than I had ever felt in my entire life. The elegant staff members who had seemed so impressive when I arrived now looked at me with obvious pity and barely concealed amusement. The Uber ride home was a blur of tears, shame, and devastating self-doubt. I kept replaying their cruel words in my mind like a torturous loop. "You don't belong. You're embarrassing him. You're not suited for this level of society. By the time I reached our house, I was completely emotionally shattered and questioning everything I thought I knew about myself and my marriage. I sat in the car in our driveway for nearly 2 hours, crying uncontrollably and trying to figure out what I should do next. Part of me wanted to pack my belongings and leave before David came home. Maybe these women were right about everything. Maybe I was holding him back from the life he deserved. Maybe he would be better off with someone who could fit seamlessly into his professional world. But another part of me felt a growing anger burning in my chest. How dare they treat me with such cruelty? I was a good person with a kind heart. I worked hard. I loved deeply. And I treated everyone with respect and dignity. Why wasn't that enough for them? Why did my worth as a human being depend on my clothing labels, my social connections, or my family's financial status? Finally, I summoned enough courage to go inside and face whatever came next. David was in his home office, working on his laptop as usual, but when he saw my tear-stained face and devastated expression, he immediately closed the computer and stood up with obvious alarm. "Emma, what happened? Why are you crying? What did they do to you?" That simple question opened the floodgates completely, and I broke down sobbing as I told him every excruciating detail. Every condescending comment, every judgmental look, every moment of calculated cruelty. David's face grew progressively darker and more furious with each revelation I shared. "They said I was embarrassing you," I sobbed against his chest. "They said I don't belong in your world, and that I should leave you alone so you can find someone more appropriate." David pulled me closer, and I could feel his entire body trembling with barely contained rage. "Those women," he said, his voice low and dangerous in a way I had never heard before, "have no idea what they've just unleashed. Maybe they're right about everything," I whispered, my confidence completely shattered. "Maybe I really am not good enough for your professional world." He pulled back and looked at me with more intensity and determination than I had ever seen in his gentle eyes. "Emma, listen to me very carefully. You are worth more than all of them combined will ever be. You have more genuine kindness and authentic beauty in your heart than they could ever hope to possess." "But they're right about one thing," I said, still crying. "I really don't fit into their world. I don't know how to act or what to say in those sophisticated social situations." David was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him wrestling with some internal decision. Then he took my hands and led me to our comfortable living room couch. "Emma, there's something crucial I need to tell you. Something I should have shared with you years ago, but I was afraid it would change everything between us." My heart started racing with anxiety. "What is it? What's wrong?" "I haven't been completely truthful with you about the nature of my work," he said, running his hand through his hair in a gesture I recognized as his tell when he was nervous. "I told you I worked in finance and consulting, and that's technically true, but I didn't tell you the full scope of what that means." I stared at him, completely confused and growing more worried by the second. "What do you mean? What aren't you telling me?" "I mean, I don't just work for a financial company, Emma. I own the company. I own several companies, actually. I'm not just David who works in finance. I'm David Harrison, founder and CEO of Harrison Global Investments." The name hit me like a lightning bolt of recognition. Even living in our small coastal town, everyone knew about Harrison Global Investments. They were one of the largest investment firms on the entire East Coast, managing billions of dollars and employing thousands of people. But that would make you... I couldn't even finish the sentence. "A billionaire," he said quietly, watching my face carefully for my reaction. "Yes, Emma, that's exactly what it makes me." I felt like the entire world had suddenly shifted beneath my feet. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my husband, our relationship, had just been turned completely upside down. I stared at David, searching his familiar face for some sign that this was all an elaborate joke, but the seriousness in his eyes told me he was completely truthful. "A billionaire," I repeated slowly, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. "You're actually a billionaire, and I never knew?" "I know how shocking this must be," David said gently, reaching for my hands. "But please let me explain why I kept this from you." My mind was racing with 1,000 questions and emotions. But our house, the way we live, everything seems so normal and modest. How is that possible if you're worth billions of dollars? "Because I made a conscious choice to live simply with you," he explained. his voice filled with love and sincerity. "Emma, I grew up in that world of extreme wealth, and I watched what it did to people. I saw how money corrupted relationships, how it made people shallow and cruel, how it attracted the wrong kind of attention and destroyed authentic connections. I was still struggling to process this revelation. So when we met at the library, you were already incredibly wealthy?" "Yes, but when I saw you there, grading papers and completely absorbed in helping your students succeed, I knew I had found something precious. You weren't impressed by expensive cars or designer clothes. You weren't trying to network or use me for social advancement. You just genuinely cared about making a difference in children's lives." Tears were streaming down my face again, but these were different tears. Not tears of humiliation and pain, but tears of overwhelming emotion, as I began to understand the depth of what David had done for me. "I fell in love with your authenticity, your kindness, your pure heart," he continued. "When you agreed to marry me, it was because you loved me for who I was as a person, not for what I could provide materially. That kind of love is rarer than any diamond or precious metal on earth." "So you've been hiding your wealth all this time to protect our relationship?" I asked, finally beginning to comprehend the magnitude of his sacrifice. "Not just to protect our relationship, but to protect you," David said, cupping my face in his hands. "I wanted you to never doubt that you were loved for exactly who you are. I wanted our marriage to be built on genuine connection, shared values, and authentic love, not on financial security or social status." The implications of this revelation were staggering. Those women today, their husbands. "Work for me," David said, his voice growing cold again. "Victoria's husband manages one of my investment portfolios. Anastasia's husband runs my corporate legal department. Penelope's husband oversees my real estate acquisitions. Cordelia's husband is my chief technology officer. And Genevieve's husband handles my international business development." I felt a strange mix of vindication and disbelief washing over me. They have no idea that their husbands' careers depend entirely on you? None whatsoever. And they certainly have no idea that they just spent the afternoon systematically destroying and humiliating the woman I love more than life itself. David stood up and began pacing around our living room, and I could see him transforming before my eyes. The gentle, quiet man I had married was revealing another side of himself. The powerful, decisive businessman who commanded respect and wielded enormous influence. "David, what are you thinking?" I asked, recognizing the determined look in his eyes. "I'm thinking that those women need to learn a very important lesson about consequences," he said, pulling out his phone. "And I'm thinking that you deserve to see justice served for the cruelty they showed you today." "You don't have to do anything drastic," I said quickly. "I don't want you to ruin people's lives because of me." He stopped pacing and looked at me with fierce intensity. "Emma, they didn't just insult you today. They attacked your character, your worth, your place in my life. They made you question yourself and our marriage. That is unforgivable." I watched as my husband transformed completely, his posture straightening, his voice becoming more authoritative, his entire demeanor shifting from gentle spouse to powerful CEO. It was like watching a master actor reveal their true character after playing a role for years. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting for Monday morning," he said, already dialing numbers, "and I'm arranging a special event for tomorrow evening. All 5 couples will be attending." "What kind of event?" I asked, though part of me was afraid to know. "A charity auction at the Grand Meridian Hotel," David replied, with a smile that was both loving and slightly dangerous. "For the new Children's Literacy Foundation that my wife will be announcing and directing." My heart stopped. "Your wife?" "David, I can't run a foundation. I don't know anything about managing that kind of organization." "You know everything that matters," he said, sitting back down beside me and taking my hands. "You understand the importance of education. You've dedicated your life to helping children learn and grow. You have the passion and the heart to make a real difference." "But those women will be there tomorrow night?" "Oh yes, they'll definitely be there, along with about 200 other people from the city's social and business elite. It will be quite the educational experience for everyone involved." I felt a mixture of terror and excitement coursing through me. "David, I don't have anything appropriate to wear to that kind of event." He smiled, and this time it was purely loving and supportive. "Leave that to me, sweetheart. I think it's time the world meets the real Mrs. David Harrison." David made several phone calls that evening, each conversation brief but clearly carrying significant weight. I could hear the authority in his voice, the expectation of immediate compliance, the subtle threat underlying his polite requests. This was a side of my husband I had never witnessed, and it was both thrilling and slightly intimidating. "Mr. Wellington," he said into the phone, "this is David Harrison. I need you and Victoria at the Grand Meridian tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock for a charity auction. Black tie required. This is not optional." He made 4 more similar calls, each one more commanding than the last. By the time he finished, I was staring at a man I barely recognized, yet somehow loved even more deeply than before. "What exactly is going to happen tomorrow night?" I asked, my curiosity overcoming my nervousness. "Tomorrow night, my darling wife, you're going to be introduced to society as the brilliant, compassionate woman who will be directing a $50 million children's literacy initiative," David said, pulling me close. "And those 5 women are going to learn that the simple kindergarten teacher they humiliated today holds more power than they ever imagined." That night, I barely slept. My mind kept racing between disbelief at David's revelation, excitement about the foundation, and anxiety about facing those cruel women again. When morning came, David was already on the phone with what sounded like event planners, foundation lawyers, and publicity coordinators. "The announcement will be made at 8:30, he was saying to someone. "Full media coverage, and make sure the education reporters are there. This is going to be a significant story." Around noon, a team of people arrived at our house. A personal stylist brought 3 gorgeous gowns for me to choose from, each more beautiful than anything I had ever imagined wearing. A makeup artist and hairstylist set up a mobile salon in our bedroom. A jewelry consultant displayed an array of stunning pieces that took my breath away. "David, this is too much," I protested, feeling overwhelmed by the sudden attention and luxury. "This is exactly what you deserve," he replied firmly. "You've spent years putting everyone else first. Your students, your family, me. Tonight, you're going to shine like the amazing woman you've always been." I chose a deep emerald green gown that made me feel elegant and confident. The makeup artist enhanced my natural features without making me look artificial. The hairstylist created an updo that was sophisticated yet approachable. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I barely recognized, poised, beautiful, and radiating quiet strength. "You look absolutely breathtaking," David said when I emerged from our bedroom. He was wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo that emphasized his tall, commanding presence. "Are you ready to change some lives tonight?" "I'm ready to try," I said, surprised by the confidence in my own voice. The Grand Meridian Hotel was even more impressive than the spa had been. Luxury cars were pulling up to the valet station, and elegantly dressed people were streaming into the marble lobby. Photographers were positioned strategically around the entrance, clearly expecting significant news to break. "Mrs. Harrison," the hotel manager greeted me personally. "Welcome to the Grand Meridian. Everything is prepared exactly as Mr. Harrison requested." Mrs. Harrison. The name still felt surreal, but I was beginning to understand the weight and responsibility that came with it. The ballroom was magnificent, filled with round tables decorated with fresh flowers and crystal stemware. A stage was set up at the front with a podium and large screens for presentations. The city's elite were mingling, their conversations creating a sophisticated buzz of anticipation. Then I saw them. Victoria, Anastasia, Penelope, Cordelia, and Genevieve were standing together near the bar, looking absolutely stunning in their designer gowns and expensive jewelry. They hadn't noticed me yet, but I could see them scanning the room with the same judgmental eyes they had used on me at the spa. "There they are," I whispered to David. "Yes, and they have no idea what's about to happen," he replied, his arms steady and supportive around my waist. "Remember, you belong here more than any of them do. You're not just attending this event. You're the reason it exists." As we made our way through the crowd, I noticed people recognizing David and approaching him with obvious respect and deference. Business leaders, politicians, socialites. They all seemed to know exactly who he was and how important his opinion could be to their own success. "David," a distinguished older man called out. "I didn't expect to see you at a social event. You usually avoid these gatherings." "Tonight is special, Senator Morrison," David replied smoothly. "I'd like you to meet my wife, Emma. She's going to be making a very important announcement this evening." The senator shook my hand warmly, treating me with the same respect he had shown David. "Mrs. Harrison, it's a pleasure. I look forward to hearing what you have to share with us." As word spread through the room that David Harrison was in attendance with his wife, more people began approaching us. I met CEOs, philanthropists, university presidents, and community leaders. Each introduction built my confidence and helped me understand that I wasn't an outsider looking in. I was exactly where I belonged. The 5 women finally noticed me, and I watched their expressions change from curiosity to shock to something approaching panic. They clearly recognized me, but they couldn't understand how the woman they had humiliated at the spa was now standing in their exclusive social circle, wearing a gown that cost more than most people's cars, and being treated with obvious respect by everyone around her. Victoria whispered something urgent to the other women, and they all turned to stare at me with undisguised confusion and growing alarm. "Ladies and gentlemen," the event coordinator announced from the podium, "please take your seats. We're ready to begin this evening's presentation." David and I were seated at the head table, along with the mayor, several prominent business leaders, and the dean of the local university's education department. I could feel the 5 women's eyes boring into me from their table across the room, but their stares no longer made me feel small or inadequate. Instead, I felt a growing sense of purpose and determination. "In just a few minutes," David whispered to me, "everyone in this room is going to know exactly who you are and what you're capable of achieving." The lights dimmed, and a spotlight illuminated the podium. The evening's host, a well-known local news anchor, stepped up to address the crowd. "Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for what promises to be a truly special announcement. Tonight, we're here to learn about an exciting new initiative that will transform educational opportunities for children throughout our region." My heart was pounding as I realized that in just moments, I would be standing in front of 200 of the city's most influential people, announcing a $50 million foundation that I would be directing. Please join me in welcoming David Harrison, CEO of Harrison Global Investments, and his wife Emma Harrison, who will be sharing some remarkable news with us tonight. David stood first, extending his hand to help me up. As we walked toward the podium together, I caught sight of the 5 women's table. Their faces had gone completely white, and they were staring at us with expressions of absolute horror and disbelief. Victoria's mouth was literally hanging open. Anastasia looked like she might faint. Penelope was gripping her husband's arm so tightly that he winced. Cordelia had gone pale as a ghost, and Genevieve appeared to be having trouble breathing. They were finally beginning to understand exactly who they had attacked at the spa, and the magnitude of their mistake was becoming crystal clear. David stepped up to the microphone first, his commanding presence immediately capturing the room's complete attention. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice carrying easily through the elegant ballroom. "I know many of you are curious about why I've asked you to join us for this special announcement. As most of you know, I prefer to keep my personal life private, but tonight is different because tonight is about something far more important than business or profit." He paused, looking directly at me with love and pride shining in his eyes. "Tonight is about the future of our children's education, and it's about introducing you to the most remarkable woman I've ever known, my wife, Emma Harrison." The applause was warm and encouraging, but I could feel the tension radiating from the table, where the 5 women sat in stunned silence. Emma has dedicated her career to elementary education, working tirelessly to ensure that every child has the opportunity to discover the joy of learning, David continued. She understands that a strong educational foundation is the most valuable gift we can give to the next generation. He turned toward me, and I felt his love and support giving me strength. Tonight, Emma will be announcing the launch of the Harrison Foundation for Children's Literacy, a $50 million initiative that will provide books, technology, and educational resources to underserved schools throughout our state. The applause was thunderous now, and I could see people at every table nodding approvingly and looking at me with respect and admiration. But more than that, David said, his voice growing stronger. Emma will be personally directing this foundation, bringing her expertise, passion, and unwavering commitment to ensuring that every child has access to quality educational opportunities. He stepped back and gestured for me to take the microphone. My legs felt shaky, but my resolve was stronger than ever. As I looked out at the audience, my eyes briefly met those of the 5 women who had tried to destroy my confidence just 24 hours earlier. They looked absolutely terrified, and I realized they were finally beginning to understand the true consequences of their cruelty. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.